Hello, everyone. My name is Mirek Sztajno. I'm a Senior Program Manager in Azure SQL in the security team. And today I'd like to talk about Azure AD capabilities in Azure SQL PaaS that contains 3 SKUs: Managed Instance, Synapse Analytics, and obviously Sql Db. I like to present 3 features. The first one is about the Azure AD service principal integration with Azure SQL. It's related to the automation processes that can be executed without human interaction. The second one is about the enhancements that we added to Azure AD Guest Users, removing the notion of the groups or make it not necessary or mandatory to use, so that individuals, individual guest users can be addressed directly. And the last one is about the hybrid identity solutions. So what kind of authentications are we supporting in Azure SQL? And all of them are associated with demos. So each of them has a demo. The service principal integration with Azure SQL, as I mentioned, allows the full automation process executed by the service principal, allowing also to create users, AAD users in the databases without human interaction. And if the specific server principal that is responsible for this creation is in addition part of the Azure AD admin, then this is really a full automation, because this service principal can operate on all databases, including the new databases that are created. This feature supports also system assign identities, as well as user assign managed identities. And this is right now in public preview. To set it up for Azure SQL, 2 steps are required. The assign managed identity to Azure SQL logical server. So we have made this assignment, and then create the directory readers role. So the first one, the managed identity assignment in for Azure SQL, can be created during server provisioning when we create a new server, but it also can be created afterwards when the server exists. The directory readers role for this managed identity is needed to allow an access for this particular server to Graph API to get the information about the user itself. The AAD team released a feature that is in public preview that allows an Azure AD group to assign a role to this group. Once we have this role, and in our specific example, this is a directory readers role, we can assign the group owner or owners to this group. And then these owners, they can assign the managed identities per tenant, for a tenant to this group, which means all servers with this managed identities assigned to this group will have access to the Graph API. The first 2 steps, so create a group and then assign the owner, must be executed by global administrator or privileged role administrator. But from this on, it can be done. The members of this group can be assigned by regular AD users. So I'd like to show you a demo where I create an Azure AD user, which is actually a service principal, and I create it on behalf of another service principal that is an administrator for all service principals. We need to create first the identity, to assign the identity, and this is done through the PowerShell or CLI command. set Azure SQL Server. This command is not possible today from Azure portal, but as I said, you can run it from PowerShell or CLI. We have to create a group. In this case, there would be a directory readers group that has the directory readers role assigned, add a default user without any specific permissions, and allowing this user to add the identity, or to add our server that has this assigned identity. We create two service principles. The one is an admin service principle that administers all service principles in SQL. We created with secret, and then create a regular service principle that would be a user. And finally, I have a shell script, a PowerShell script that shows how this is added to the SQL database. So with this, let's go to the portal. And here you can see that here's my server, SQL Bits. It has a group assigned as AD admin B2B. Let's go to AAD. And let's start with enterprise applications first. So you can see that I have here two applications I created. There's this admin for SPU users. So this is this SP service principle that will be executing the user creation. And this is a user that will be created in SQL DB, my app. If I look, and this is important, on all applications, and I add SQL bit, you can see here my managed identity. This is the prefix of the server name that was created, and this is the identity that we will use to access the Graph API. Next, let's go to the groups, and first of all, let's see what the B2B is. So this is the group that, as you remember, is an admin for my SQL bit server, and it has the following members. So it has me, because I need an access through SSMS. It has the admin for SPU. So this is the service principal that is that would be an administrator for the server, or part of the administrator group that would be adding another service principles. And important is also to look at this through user that will be used in the last demo. It's also part of the admin group. If we look at the group directory readers group, this is the group that has the assigned role directory readers. And when you create this group, it will ask you what roles do you want to assign, and you can choose. This group has an owners, a regular user, a default user, and it has no assign role. And this user can add members. And as you can see, we have here our server, our managed identity here, allowing to access to the graph. So with this, we can go to the PowerShell, except that before we do it, let's go first to let's go to this database SQL bits and run the select statement. And as you can see that my application is not there yet. Now I have a PowerShell script here that allows the following. I have for a specific tenant ID, for my tenant ID, I have a client ID, which is my AAD, which is my admin for SP users. This is my app ID, and it has the secret there. Using the ADA library, I can pass these parameters and I can get a token from AAD. And with this, I can connect to SQL bits and to my SQL bits database, where I want to create the user, my app, create user from external provider. So the admin service principal on behalf himself create another user. So let's run the script. And as you can see, we get a token here and the statement was executed. So if I go back and repeat the statement now, I see my application here. So that concludes the first feature. Let's go to the second one and let's talk about this. So this is the enhancement that supports the AAD guest users. Today, the guest users for AAD are the users invited from another AADs. There are users with the Microsoft accounts like Outlook.com, Hotmail, or Live.com. And there are also users like Gmail.com. And today we can only address them in SQL through the groups. So you have to create a group in AAD, and this group has to be created then in SQL. With this feature, you can create these users directly. So when I'm in the contoso.com tenant, I can create Mirek at Microsoft.com, who is the guest user from external provider. In the past, the group here was required to do this. It was not possible to use it this way. And in addition, we can use now the guest user directly as an AAD admin. So instead of making a part of the group, you just add this user directly there. This feature is supported for Azure SQL Db, for managed instances and Synapse Analytics. The old mechanism with groups is still supported, and this feature is in public preview. What I'm going to show in the demo is to create the individual AAD admin for, in this case, for Mirek and Microsoft.com, who is a guest user. And then again, in SQL, create another guest user from Outlook.com and show that we can connect through this user. So with this, let's go first to portal. We need to go back to SQL Server. We have SQL bits here, and let's change. The first thing is let's change the admin. So we change it. We set it from the group to a guest user, which is this one. Let's select it. Let's save it. Okay, it's there. Now we go to SSMS, and we execute this command. So what I did is I create directly here mirekas.pm@outlook.com from external provider. Now let's see if I can connect as this user. Here it is. I need to check if this is the database. Yes, it is. Let's connect it. And I need to a password. Hopefully I put it right. And this one has a MFA enable, which means I need to put the code there. It's always good for this MS accounts like Outlook, Live, Gmail, put an MFA, and you can see that the user is connected here. So I think with this, we can disconnect them and go back to the presentation. The last one is about the different identity solutions for Azure SQL, focusing on the hybrid. But the first one is the cloud only identity. This is the identity that where you have the users, the objects created only in cloud. They are not associated with on-premises identities. They do not require any hybrid solutions. And then there's this section called hybrid identities that have a three mechanism: password hash authentication, password through authentication, and federated authentication. The oldest one is federated authentication. And where you federate your Active Directory using AAD Federation Service, ADFS, with AAD, and can use the on-premises groups and Windows individual accounts. But AAD introduced two others, password hash and pass-through authentication. For password hash is the simplest way to enable the on-premises objects in Azure AD. And this mechanism allows to store the hash value of the password in AAD. So it goes directly to AAD and authenticate the user. It doesn't go deeper. Since some customers do not like to store passwords in AAD, the pass-through authentication allows you to still to store the password or to keep the password in the Active Directory. So every time you use a pass-through authentication, you go to Active Directory to check password. And this can be combined with a seamless single sign-on, so you can use your Windows authentication. Both methods are kind of an easy way or easier way to set it up. They do not require ADFS. And the majority of setup is really on the AAD side, and it's always good to check in the portal what's the status on the Azure AD Connect, which is the mechanism how to synchronize both the on-premises Active Directory with AAD. This feature is supported for 3 SKUs for MIS, SQL DB, and Synapse Analytics. Here's the diagram that is provided by the AAD team. Choosing the right authentication method, you are welcome to look into this and to find the method that you would like to use. And I like to present a demo here, which is a pass-through demo connecting to MI. First of all, we will review the portal, what's there, but then there are two options. I can run the connection from my local machine that is not part of the domain join machine, and then having a VM that is part of the domain join, and I can connect using seamless single sign-on. So let's go back to our SSMS. I don't think we need it anymore. Same here. And let's connect to MI server. So this is my server. This is the user that I mentioned, the through user. And since this particular machine is not the domain join, if I connect, I have to put a password here. Hopefully I type it right. No. This time it works. This is long password. We are using long passwords. It's always good to use long passwords for the protection. And the problem is that you may not type them right the first time. You can see that I'm connected through this user. And if I go to my domain, if I go to my VM that is the domain join, I can see that you can see here that this user through is now part of the domain join machine, in this case VM, and I run SSMS. And let me just make it a little bigger so we can see. I want to log in or authenticate through the integrated authentication using my Windows account. So if I connect, then I need to go back to make it a little smaller. You can see that this user is connected to this particular managed instance. One thing that we should also do is, as I promise, let's go to the portal, to Azure Active Directory, and let's look at the Azure AD Connect. And you can see here that this is a pass-through is enabled, single authentication is enabled. So this concludes my demo. That concludes my presentations, except that I would like to add a few more information. So first of all, it's my beeper about the time. First of all, the Azure AD roadmap for Sql Db. The new feature that is coming soon is Azure AD only authentication for Sql Db. We will have it soon in private preview. It allows to access Active Directory. It allows to access Azure SQL only through the Azure AD authentication, and it disables SQL authentication. We plan to add the AAD logins to Sql Db and Synapse Analytics. As you know, we have these AAD logins in managed instance. We would like to add them also to Sql Db and Synapse Analytics. And last but not least, we will offer in the future the link server for managed instance, which are authenticated with Azure AD. Here's a list of resources, very well documented. You have tutorials, there are blogs there, so please go and look through this. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd like to thank you for